Hello. Okay, is this on? Yes, okay. So good morning. I'm happy to welcome you all as we take a closer look at the work Nimo has created for her exhibition. Melissa and I have had the pleasure of sponsoring Nimo, and it's been a pure delight to work with her over the past couple years. Nimo approaches the creative process with a consistently positive outlook and has eagerly taken advantage of all that the visual arts at Putney has to offer, as you'll soon see for yourself. She's a creative thinker and problem solver. Nimo often improvises with materials in ways that are both resourceful and conceptually thoughtful. She's not afraid to try things out and be responsive to what she discovers, and her work frequently explores themes of memory and place, weaving personal experience with broader cultural landscapes and with the intimacy of sitting down with an old friend. Nimo brings tenacity to her process, pushing through challenges with persistence and purpose. What you'll see today is a testament to that commitment, a project that brings together multiple materials and ideas into a unified artistic expression that honors her time at Putney. We're also honored to have and welcome our outside evaluator, Suzanne Flint. Suzanne is a fiber artist based in Dummerston with a background in studio art and museology. She spent 35 years as the curator of Memorial Hall Museum in Deerfield, Massachusetts, where her work with historic textiles, quilts, embroidery, and rugs inspired her own creative practice. Suzanne creates art using a contemporary approach to rug hooking. She's an active member of several fiber arts guilds, including the Green Mountain Rug Hooking Guild and the International Guild of Hand Hooking Rug Makers. We're grateful to have you here, Suzanne, to share your perspective and speak with Nimo about her work. Please join me in welcoming Nimo.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay. Hello everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Nimo. Welcome to my senior exhibition. Before I begin, I want to start off with a few thank yous. There have been so many people who made this exhibition come true. Thank you, Susan Flint, for coming here to be my outside evaluator. Thank you, Michael, for letting me into the dark room, teaching me and providing me with solutions to work on my cyanotype. Thank you, Hillary, for helping me on every step I tripped on the jewelry part of my exhibition. Thank you, Naomi, for providing me with space to work on my ceramics and reminding me when each step should be completed and fired. Thank you, Marie, my dear advisor, for always checking in with me and giving me a hug when I need. Thank you to all my friends and family who talked to me and cheered me on when I was stressed and gave me helpful insights. Most importantly, I want to thank my two amazing sponsors, Robin and Melissa, for being so patient and supportive during my exhibition, even when I kept having ambitious ideas popping out, not knowing how ambitious and how hard it was to achieve. Without further ado, let me tell you about my exhibition. When I was younger, the dining table wasn't just a place to eat. It was the center of everything, the place where my family gathered to share stories that happened throughout the day, whether it was a funny moment at school or at work. It was where we'd argue over who got the last piece of cake, or laugh until our stomach hurts over my dad's terrible, terrible jokes. It was where we'd linger long after the food was gone, each of us still holding our empty bowls, as if the act of sitting together kept the conversation going a little longer. The dining table became a kind of an anchor, a place where time seemed to slow down, where even on the busiest day, we'd find a moment to connect. It wasn't always perfect. Sometimes we'd be too tired to talk to, or too distracted to listen. But the table was always there. This winter, during my digital photography class, Michael introduced me to the work of Carrie Mae Weems, specifically her kitchen table series. The image felt so familiar, a single table, simple and unremarkable. Carrie Mae Weems captured the moment that felt both deeply personal and universally relatable. A mother and daughter staring at a quiet moment, a woman alone with her thoughts, watching her family play, and a couple gathering together for a meal. Each scene felt like a snapshot of all the little ways we'd gather around the table, the way we'd come together and drifted apart. It struck me how Carrie Mae Weems used that one space, the dining table, to tell a whole range of stories, each one layered with memory, intimacy, solitude, and community. So, for the final project of that class, I took a series of my own desk, not realizing how deeply inspired I was by her. I photographed the desk when I was making myself ramen because I was homesick, when I struggled to catch up with my anatomy notebook entry, when I tried to mend a hole on my favorite socks, and when I was decorating my nails. These small moments felt meaningful to me because they reflect my daily life and the independence that comes with it. In the end, this space felt right. It holds so many objects that quietly support what I do every day. Looking at all these surfaces that contain so much stories made me think about the dining table at the KDU, the moment it held, and how a single surface can become a stage for different stories, where students and faculty gather. The reason I chose to work on the KDU table is that I was amazed by the shifting energy of the table in the 3 phases. The first phase is the stillness before the meal. The table is empty, almost like it was holding a breath, waiting for everything to begin. Then comes the second phase, when the energy explodes, people rush in, placing plates and cups, leaning forward in conversations. The table became crowded, chaotic, alive with motion and noise. And there's the third phase, the calmness after the chaos, where the energy has left, leaving behind only traces, like crumbled napkins, unfinished plates, half-empty cups, and the table is empty again. But it is still holding everything that just happened. I took the before and after photo of one of the tables last night, after dinner, as you can see here. Trust me, I'm not trying to shame anyone on who didn't clean their mess up last night. Well, that realization became the starting point for my own work, where I began to think about the table not just as a piece of furniture, but as a canvas, a space to weave together fragments of conversations, memories, and material. So, in my proposal, I wrote about how I want to create a variety of pieces using every medium I've learned at Putney, all centered around the KDU. I have all these ideas of using different parts of the KDU to create art. Here are the photos and sketches I took of them for further inspiration. Since I've lived above it, I hear its sound every morning. The oven stoker chopping wood, machine starting up, and the breakfast crew pushing the plate cart. I thought about recording those sounds and weaving a blanket inspired by them. I considered spinning and dyeing yarn using natural dyes from the KDU food scrap, such as coffee, onion peels, and berries, and incorporating them into a woven piece. Melissa have offered me old silverwares with elm tree engravings that the KDU used in the old days, and I imagined turning the handles into rings, maybe even sourcing more utensils from the thrift stores. However, as you can see, the final work ended up looking very different. Looking at the pieces, there are different materials on there. Let me break it down for you. I started by weaving a base. What I thought would be a straightforward process quickly became much more challenging. I ended up creating a tapestry with 7 distinct color blocks, 15 including the white sections. Each color had to be woven separately, which took far longer than I anticipated. The plain white sections were surprisingly quick. I finished them in just 2 days, but the color blocks demanded far more time and focus. They took forever. And this was the only part where technical skills really took over creativity. By the time I finished the base, half of the trimester is already gone, and I was still staring at a mostly empty tapestry. That's when the stress started to creep in. I remember thinking, okay, I need to switch gears. So I shifted into the creative part. I have never worked with cyanotype before. It was always one of those materials that seemed so cool and intriguing, but I hadn't had the time to make art with it. One day, while I was eating the KDU, the sunlight hits a glass cup at just the right angle, projecting a distorted, abstract pattern onto the table. That moment sparked an idea for me. I can incorporate cyanotype into my work too. Michael taught me how to mix the solutions, how long to expose it under the sun, and how to apply it to fabric. I started experimenting right away, setting up a table scene, including objects that felt familiar, the jewelry people left behind before heading to crew, and a film camera someone was using to finish a last-minute photography assignment. The idea of an applique came to me very last minute. While I was struggling with my weaving, Cassidy was sitting behind me in the class, stitching together an apple core from fabric scraps. It was so neatly crafted. Each piece was perfectly cut. Then she showed me a fish she'd made and asked where she might put it. That's when it clicked for me. I can try to make an applique too. I started with an apple core, then a sandwich, and a grapefruit. But since it was my first time using the sewing machine, everything was a mess. The stitches were uneven, pieces didn't line up, but every mistake taught me something new. One afternoon, I was sitting in my studio, feeling pretty pleased with myself. All I have left to do was to cut out the fabric and hot glue it onto the blanket. Easy, fast, and it sticks forever, I thought. I was convinced I'd be done soon. Then Brian came to me, looked at my piece, and said, "You shouldn't use hot glue gun. It's gonna look unfinished. You should sew them on." My heart dropped. I knew sewing each piece would take so much longer, and I was already running on fumes. The thought of going back and doing it right away felt like a mountain I wasn't sure I was able to climb, including the fix-it bottle exploding in my studio, but that was a whole nother story. So when Brian suggested sewing everything on, it wasn't just a technical challenge. It felt like confronting that whole chaotic moment all over again. But after talking to Melissa, who also strongly urged me to sew the pieces down, I decided to give it another shot. I spent the next week almost living in the weaving studio, putting everything together. It was frustrating and exhausting, but as I looked at the finished piece, I knew it was worth it. The fabric was secure, the edges weren't lifting, and I can see how much stronger and more polished it looked. I did the same with the corners. Initially, I was planning to glue them on, but I ended up embroidering everything on. Here's my before and after. Looking back, I'm so glad I listened to them. If I hadn't taken the shortcut, the piece would have felt incomplete, and I would have always known I hadn't given it my all. It's a short moment, but it's the one that really reminded me how much I need those voices pushing me to do better, even if I don't want to hear it. Melissa was right when she said, people get tired when they are stuck on something, and they come up with the fastest way to finish. But that's not always the best way. That week in the studio was a reminder for me that the longer and harder path, it's usually the one that's worth taking. So, if you look at my work in the gallery, you'll see this round ceramics piece with bits of stained glass, clay, and metal on it. Originally, I was going to attach everything to the tapestry, but once I started to put them together, it felt too heavy and awkward, so I decided to give it its own platform where the piece could stand on its own. I ended up cutting into clay to form the shapes of a round plate, then added pieces of smooth glass that I prepared earlier, connecting wires through them, as you can see up there. A fact about me is that if you give me a piece of metal wire, I'll start twisting and bending it without even thinking. I could do it for hours, and that's how lots of these pieces came together. Just me sitting there twisting wires into little curls and loops, whether it's on yarn or on wire, until they start to feel like something. I soldered silver onto the prongs of the fork, giving it movement, just like there's food on it. Most likely spaghetti, all tangled and messy. There's a bracelet I made by twisting metal wires and a ring that was made from the edge of the silver spoon. It's all kind of collections of things that don't totally belong together, but somehow still worked. It's a bit chaotic, but that's what I love about it. I can go on and on about how I made every single piece of these pieces, but honestly, what sticks with me more is than how I made each part is that all the time I was just messing around with materials, trying things out, and somehow ended up with something that actually worked. As I look back at my artwork, I noticed patterns that reveal who I am. I grew up in a culture deeply connected to traditional Chinese patterns, colors, and stories, and this background has shaped my artistic eye. I'm influenced by the vibrant colors often found in Tibetan art, like bold orange, greens, blues, red, and yellow. The wall hangings and richly patterned Tibetan cloths that surround me as a child filled my world with high contrast. It's the Nemo color, my friends say whenever they see my work. This connection to color has become my second nature. It's a part of my creative instinct, guiding my palette choice without the second conscious thought. In my junior year, without knowing how, symbols began to take on a special meaning in my art. It started as a casual dawdle on my textbook with curves and scribbles and dots winding around my notes. At first, I thought of them as nothing more than random scribbles, but I soon realized these shapes were more than doodles. They were symbols of my thoughts and experiences. This discovery encouraged me to incorporate symbols intentionally, transforming how I communicate through visual language. I love layering things: fabric, glass, colors, and memories. I didn't really notice it until last spring, when I was making a piece on my bedsheet, trying to piece together a childhood weekend at my grandparents' house. I kept piling on scraps of fabric, stitching them together like I was holding on to those little moments. Then, during project week, I worked with stained glass. I layered the glass piece, letting light poke through in some spots and stay blocked in others. And in the double weave I did, I messed around with how colors crossed over, layering until they made these weird, unexpected colors. It's funny to see how I didn't set out to make everything about layering, but looking at it all now, it's like that what I've been doing all along. One of my biggest challenges as an artist is that I often come up with ambitious, exciting ideas without fully considering the time, process, or obstacles involved. In my mind, I can see a perfect, ideal, finished piece, vibrant, intricate, exactly how I imagined, but reality rarely aligns with that vision. What began as a simple idea quickly became far more complicated than I expected. I found myself constantly pushing the boundaries of what I thought the piece could handle, experimenting with textures and materials that added unexpected weight and tension. I underestimated how much time it would take to complete even one small detail, how long I'd spend threading yarn or adjusting the petals on the loom to accommodate the patterns I choose. I underestimated how much weight the blanket could actually support when I tried to incorporate objects and how each new object I added altered the structure and balance of the piece. And I underestimated how much patience it would take to stay committed to the process, especially when things weren't working as planned. But through those setbacks, I also learned far more than I thought I would learn. Despite the challenges, I've come to appreciate this part of my process, the way I don't always plan ahead. It gives me the freedom to let changes happen naturally. One day, Robin came up to me and told me that she was really impressed that if she had spent that many hours weaving a base, she would be too scared to add anything to it without planning each step carefully to avoid mistakes. But I kind of just go for it. That comment stuck with me. It made me realize that while I might not always have a perfect plan, I do have a strong belief that things will work out, even if it means adjusting the plan along the way. Like I mentioned earlier, I had a vision for the big picture, but I never mapped it out exactly what I want to add or how I'll do it. Instead, I focus on each step, trusting that if I poured my full effort in each step, the next step would reveal itself. Each adjustment became an opportunity for me to try something new, and in the end, those unexpected turns became some of the most interesting part of the piece. After talking for so long, let me show you my final work. Putney have given me the unique opportunity to explore a wide range of art forms, many of which I've never imagined I would learn. It's been a place where I could take risks, try new mediums, and let my ideas evolve without the pressure of perfection. For me, this exhibition is a collection of those moments. The late night in the studio, chatting with my friends, the day when nothing went right, and the relief and a sense of achievement when things finally came together. It's not just about the finished pieces, it's about everything I learned along the way. I remember my parents telling me whenever I stumbled on something difficult. They said, there are two types of happiness. The first kind is you feel in the moment when the process itself is fun and enjoyable. The second is the kind that comes after you've struggled through something hard. The process might not be as fun, but years later or weeks later, when you look back, you feel the deeper sense of achievement and fulfillment. The exhibition have given me both. There were days when everything clicked, and I felt completely proud and confident with my work. And there were times when nothing went as planned, when every step I took met some kind of stumble. But now, standing here and seeing it all come together, I feel that second kind of happiness, the one that comes from getting through a hill, and another hill, solving a problem, another problem, and another problem. And that, to me, is the most rewarding part. This exhibition has been a reflection of my time at Putney, of the people who helped me along the way, and all the little moments that made this place feel like a second home. Thank you. I think there's questions now, but I can't see. Miles. So last spring I was working on my stained glass, and then I had this awesome idea of wanting to connect wire and stained glass together, and I was thinking about using the wire to wrap up the glass and then curl together, but I don't like it. So I find a really interesting glue that can glue the metal onto the stained glass if you put that in the kiln, like the stained glass kiln, and then it will just melt and like secure it forever. And there's pros and cons about it. Like that glue can stay forever, but if I found out I did a mistake on it, I can't remove it. I was just like trying to like peel it off, but it just can't come off. So yeah. Naomi.
I love the arrangement of the glass and clay and the work. And I'm wondering if you were thinking about securing it onto a backing to make it a more permanent piece, or whether you may consider ways that they could be added to your tapestry that would pull the fabric with some backing on it.
I kind of like the way it looks right now, so if I want to go further on this, I would try to like sew them on. So if you see here, I made holes that I was planning to sew wrap around through so then it can stick on my blanket, but the blanket have only that weight that carries the whole thing, so that can't work. So if I do it on this like silk cloth I added on the back, it will be more easy. So if I wanted to go further, I would sew them onto that. Camilo.
What was your favorite medium to work in?
Good question. I might just say it. Wait, I need to look back. I really like making those apples. That's my favorite part. Like, I was just in the studio. I was like, I can just play around with some cool things. So I got two fabric and cut them together. It was really fun, and it's that most part I enjoyed. Wait, actually, the corners also. I enjoyed the corners so much because it doesn't require any thinkings. I just go for it and had my K drama out, and I was just watching it and getting it done. So that was a really fun part also. I think my least favorite part might be the stained glass because it kind of requires a lot of organizing and you stick them, but before they go into the kiln, they're gonna be sticky until they got fired. So like I need to there's glue all over my hand. I keep mistouching stuff and switching, like changing its shape, and I need to refix it. It's been a really annoying process, but I'm glad it went through. Andrew.
Meanwhile, I really thought you're talking about hearing all the noises from the kitchen, living above the kitchen. I was wondering on the other piece if there's any incorporation of noise in the surroundings of material, like any of the objects.
I think that would be those corners, the curls, that chaotic corners. How a lot of things going around in that space and not just on the table. Allison.
In this presentation and in your time at Putney, you've done so many different versions of creativity, and so much of that is represented here. Did you have experience with any of them when you got here? Or was it all new to you?
They were all new to me. Nothing was, I only know how to draw on paper when I came here. Well, I self-taught it myself, crochet, but I did not use it in here. Yeah. Brian.
First off, I love what you said about, I call them type 1 and type 2 fun. I think there's a lot of type 2 in this perseverance, and you should be really proud of holding yourself to that high standard and pushing through. My question for you is, do you think differently about your conversations at the KDU tables
So, wait, is the question, do I feel different about the conversations?
Yeah, when you're at dinner having a conversation or you're being at a KQ table, has your experience changed in any way after this episode?
I am more conscious about what people is putting on the table, how people sat, and how. So I ran dinner with Mia this spring, and then so I kind of see everyone eating, and like I spy on them, making sure everything's okay. That's when the time I kind of also thought about this project, like, oh, they're leaving some jewelries they left behind because they need to go to crew. There's a film camera that got left behind. And I would see that a lot of big groups of tables that would get all the chairs together in that one table. I would look at that and see how like they talk and how, oh, like there's so many things going on in that table. So yeah, I will put more attention on that. Maya.
How do you see yourself as an artist, and how has this exhibition maybe changed that perception for you?
Would you repeat that, please?
So Maya's question is, how do I see myself as an artist in this process, and how do I? How does this exhibition affected me? I think I've always wanted to combine all the art I work in Putney. Since I had the opportunity to try everything, I always want to find a way that they can somehow work together but not look weird. And for my exhibition, like my first thought is just to use all the mediums I can and just get deeper into it, I guess. But my mind kind of went blank, sorry. I feel like this have turned out differently than I planned in my proposal. That I told people that I'm gonna get more. It's really ambitious that I want to get into all the things I've learned really deep and explore all the things that it's not just on the surfaces. But it doesn't turn out that way, and I end up combining everything together, like everything together. That wasn't my initial plan. And I think how I evolved as an artist, I think through my script, like what I talk about, I got more conscious about how my brain thinks during the process and how each thing is not about like getting it done perfectly and like exactly how I want it, but how like I really enjoy the process, learn throughout the time. I hope that answers your question. Libby.
Do you have a mental image of what a tapestry of your home table would include or look like?
Whoa, I don't have a. So you mean a table in my home? Home.
Like the first pictures you showed of your family, what were those tapestries?
Ooh, they will have different things. They will have chopsticks instead of forks. That's the first thing I thought about. And I think the table at home is mostly somewhere. The KDU is where people kind of eat and have food on it. So people usually meet during meal times in the KDU. But in home, there's like, we watch movies in there, we make dumplings, so that's really like a place where everything is going on, and that, yeah.